president of Thomas Partner Strategies. He's a Republican strategist, an ad man. He's the chief political analyst for KFI AM 640 and the host of his own podcast called The Thomas Guide, available now. Stuttering John Melendez is host of the Stuttering John podcast. He writes about his roles on The Howard Stern Show and The Tonight Show with Jay Leno in his book. It is called Easy for You to Say. The book is heartfelt and hilarious. Welcome back, all of you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Guns, obviously the big debate this week, and the big question, Areva, what do we do now?
Well, what we do is we do something. I think the American public has made it very clear that we are so sick and tired and so frustrated with the inactivity. I'm a mom, so when Sandy Hook happened, when that mass shooting, I could not imagine that we weren't going to pass a universal bipartisan background check law, and we didn't. And since Sandy Hook, we can just count, and that Time magazine cover shows us all the mass shootings we've had to date. And I'm really frustrated when I hear Mitch McConnell say, I'm not going to call the senators back to take any action. It'll take too long for them to get back. We'll just let them enjoy their summer. The American people want action, and we want it now. We want universal background checks, and we want to address the whole issue of assault weapons and these large magazines that are used to kill hundreds of people at a time.
John, help explain for us the political calculus here. You do this for a living.
I do.
Background checks, 90% plus approval ratings in polls, and yet the Republicans won't bring it up. Why is that?
Well, it's because first of all, on a presidential level, it's because a lot of these key states that decide the election are staunchly, pro-gun and anti-gun control. So it's political suicide in that case. Look, you also look at a more granular level at senators, members of Congress that could be swing votes. Their districts do not want these gun control laws. They're very pro-gun and see it as a slippery slope.
But background checks, is that being anti-gun? I mean, don't a lot of gun owners support the idea of background checks?
Some do, but then when you start playing out the messaging sequence, the logical thing is you may trust, if you're a Republican, you may trust Trump and his administration with you on a list, but you may not trust the next Democrat in the White House with your name on a list. Look, in LA City, the amount and the length that they've gone of gun control measures have only made it more difficult for people like me, law-abiding citizens, to protect ourselves. If you look at, for instance, assault rifles were invented in the 1960s. Why is it that it's a relatively recent phenomenon that we have these huge mass shootings, yet assault rifles have been around since the 60s? I think we have to look at the bigger problem and go, why are we having this issue? And is there something bigger that we can address?
But that's the argument that we can't do two things at the same time. We can do exactly what you just said, John. We can look at the bigger issue. We can look at gun violence as a health crisis, which I think we should be doing in this country. And at the same time, we can enact smart and reasonable gun control laws. There's nothing that prevents us from doing both at the same time.
You're assuming that I agree that those laws would stop these shootings from happening, and I don't think they would. Criminals will find a way, whether you have longer wait times. Okay, a lot of these mass shootings are well planned out. The Vegas shooter put together his arsenal over a year's period of time. So what are you going to do?
John, what do you think?
I think that there are four things that need to be done. First of all, the ban on assault weapons. Even the inventor of the AR-15 said it was never intended for civilian use, ever. Okay, that's one thing. Lesser mags. We don't need 40-round mags on a gun. If you're going to go hunting, you don't need it. And if you want to protect your home, if you're that bad if you're that bad of a shot that needs 40-round mags, then you know what?
You're in trouble anyhow.
Yeah, you're in trouble anyhow. Hold on. I didn't finish yet. Hold on a second. I'm sorry. And then also,
you're blowing this out of proportion.
Definitely stricter background checks. Hold on, I'll let you speak without interrupting. You can give me this amount of respect. Yeah. And then fourthly, I think the parents who own these guns, if their kids get in possession of that gun, these parents should be held equally as responsible.
Well, they are.
Thank you.
They are. If somebody steals my gun and hurts somebody, I am criminally liable. I'll use an example, John. In LA City, they took on a handgun capacity magazine from 12 rounds down to 7. People go, what do you need 12 rounds for? Do you know how hard it is to hit a target when your adrenaline shaking and somebody breaks into your home with 7 rounds? And they want to reduce it even more. And that's the problem I've got, John, is my public safety is being jeopardized, by the way, with criminals who may not pay attention because they may not buy.
That is a losing argument. 90% of Americans, we are sick and tired of watching our kids be slaughtered. I'm sick and tired of kids saying
all
they're
are.
afraid to go to school because some mass shooter may walk into the school.
And there are other
your
solutions
ability
than
to use
that.
mask
So
is
John-
There are
not
more
important.
solutions than that
John-
than
Your ability
restricting
to
my
use that
rights.
gun
But how about a
is not
shotgun?
important.
If you can't hit a guy with a shotgun with one shot, that the thing goes out this big, then you really should not own a gun in the
You
first
clearly
place.
don't own guns, 'cause that's not how shotguns work.
John Thomas, so what is the solution?
For school shootings?
For all these shootings, these
well,
mass shootings, how do we
first
stop
of all,
this?
for school, you have to take it case by case. For school shootings, there's some good initiatives going on in Upper New York right now, where you put school safety officers in schools with guns that deter it from happening. So that's number one. The other is, look, we've got a mental. It sounds contrite, but we do have a mental health crisis going on. We have to address that, okay? Then the other is we have to talk about the fact that kids these days are practicing mass shootings every single day, killing thousands of people in a video game environment. We have to just analyze of what we're putting forth as a society. And then, of course, the destruction of the family unit is also a problem. We have to address
These are just Trump
that.
talking points. I'm so sick of people
It's not
blaming
Trump
this on
talking
mental
points,
health issues.
Ariva.
All the studies show that people with mental illness are much more likely to injure themselves than to injure other people. And it's just not fair to continue to try to label this as a mental health issue when there's so many bigger issues. And we got to get these guns. And your solution to school shootings is to put more guns in the school.
Yeah,
so now we
but-
want to arm teachers.
Yeah,
we want to
but-
arm the cafeteria worker with guns. That is
I
a
said-
ridiculous,
no, I said
ridiculous
police
school
policy.
safety.
Well,
The
Police
biggest
officers.
person with
we've had police safety officers in school. We had that in Parkland, and look what happened. All those
It's-
kids were still murdered. You have to address
They
the issue of the
didn't-
number
they
of
didn't
guns
do
on
their
the street,
job.
the type of weapons that John is talking about. We have to get those guns off the
The
street.
biggest
If we're ever gonna address
person
this
with
issue.
the mental health issue is our president, okay? And he's the one who's inciting a lot of. You have to admit this, John. He's inciting a lot of this violence.
I don't
You
believe
don't
so.
even believe that his.
No, I actually
his,
don't. No.
His ethnic.
Well, a man in Montana,
rhetoric?
John, just body
Okay,
slammed a
guys,
13-year-old and said he
guys,
did because the
John-
president was speaking
The shoot-
directly
John
to the
Thomas,
shooter.
last
I
word.
think the shooter in Ohio is a staunch Elizabeth Warren fan. So
Okay,
I'm
how about
not
the shooter
really
in El
sure.
Paso who didn't like the Mexicans?
Okay,
He just came out with that. I'm just saying.
You can shift blame if you want, but
Okay.
this is not a Trump phenomenon. We've had these pre-Trump. So if you want to blame this president, if it was the
Is
first
he
time
helping?
if it ever happened, if it was the first time it ever happened in this
All right.
president's watch, I could give your argument credence. But I don't think
Let
I
me
can
switch
because
like
it's not a
this.
new thing.
Mitch McConnell has 4 pieces of legislation right now on his desk, and he has still not brought it to the floor. Why not? And he's on hiatus now. So let's wait till September now. Who cares if there's more mass shootings? Isn't that irresponsible?
That's not what he's saying. No.
What is he saying?
No, you're assuming that these laws, like red flag laws, others work. There's plenty of
Universal background check?
hold
We have
on.
now
There's
doesn't
plenty of
work.
studies.
You're not for universal
There's
background
plenty of
checks?
arguments that show that the only thing it does is perhaps address people trying to commit suicide, but it doesn't actually reduce mass shootings.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. One of the big questions
light
many
topic.
people have about gun control is what's going on. Similar questions could be asked about homelessness. We're going to go to Skid Row with Bernie Sanders when we come back.